Hi there. Before we dive in, it's a fun idea if you drop a comment with your location. Thanks. Make sure to like and subscribe. Let's settle in and get started. The blue lights flash behind me and my heart sinks. It's late, too late to be driving, but I needed the air. I pull over, my hands gripping the steering wheel as I wait for the officer to approach. The window rolls down and I'm met with the familiar face of Mike, a cop I've known for years. His expression changes from casual to something else, something I can't quite read. "Joe," he says, his voice low, "what are you doing out here?" I shrug, trying to play it off. Just needed to clear my head. Mike glances past me, and I follow his gaze. A car is parked a few yards ahead. It's dark, but I can make out the figures in the back seat. My stomach twists. I know that car. "Isn't that Sarah?" Mike asks, his tone now full of concern. My blood runs cold. Sarah, my wife, in the back seat of another man's car. She's supposed to be home with our kid. I step out of the car, my legs trembling as I walk closer. The scene comes into focus, and I wish it hadn't. She's sprawled out, her clothes disheveled, her blouse open. The man beside her, someone I don't recognize, is shirtless, his hands all over her. Sarah's eyes meet mine, glassy, unfocused. She's drunk, maybe worse. My stomach churns, but I can't move, can't speak. "Sarah?" My voice cracks, barely audible. She smirks, a bitter, twisted smile that I've never seen before. "What are you doing here, Joe? Shouldn't you be home playing daddy?" Her words slice through me, raw and cutting. "I can't believe this is happening. This isn't my wife. It can't be." "Get out of the car, Sarah," I say, trying to keep my voice steady. The man beside her laughs, a deep, mocking sound. "She's not going anywhere, buddy. You might want to go home before things get ugly." Mike steps forward, hand on his holster. "Sarah, you need to come with me," he says firmly. "Joe, I think it's best if you leave." "But I can't. I can't just walk away from this." "Sarah, come on. Let's go home," I plead. She laughs, the sound harsh and cruel. "Home? I don't care about home, Joe. I don't care about you." She reaches for the man's hand, pulling him closer, and the sight makes me sick. "Sarah, please," I whisper, but it's too late. Her lover slams the car into gear and peels away, leaving me standing there, frozen in shock. Mike curses under his breath, running back to his cruiser. I don't think, I just act. I jump into my car and floor the gas, chasing after them. The road is a blur of headlights and taillights. My heart pounds in my chest, my mind spinning. I can't lose her like this. I won't. The crash happens so fast. 1 minute I'm closing the gap, and the next their car swerves, flips, and skids off the road. Metal crunches, glass shatters. Everything stops. My breath catches in my throat as I stare at the wreckage. The car lies on its side, twisted metal and shattered glass scattered across the road. Time seems to slow as I stumble forward, the sound of my footsteps drowned out by the ringing in my ears. My heart pounds, each beat echoing in my chest. I can barely think. "Sarah." I reach the car and drop to my knees, hands trembling as I peer inside. Blood is everywhere, pooling beneath her, staining her clothes, her skin. Her eyes are open, but there's no recognition, no life left in them. The man beside her is motionless, his body contorted in an unnatural angle. They're both gone. My hands shake as I reach out, touching her face, willing her to wake up, to say something, anything. But she's cold, her skin already losing its warmth. My mind races, trying to make sense of what's happened, but nothing fits. Nothing makes sense. Mike is beside me, pulling me back, but I can't let go. I'm screaming her name, my voice hoarse, but she doesn't respond. Mike's words are a blur. I don't know what he's saying. I don't care. All I can see is Sarah, lifeless, the woman I thought I knew, gone in an instant. "Joe, you need to step back," Mike says, more forcefully this time, tugging me away. I resist, but he's stronger, dragging me to my feet. I'm in shock, my legs barely holding me up as I'm led away from the car. The world spins around me, everything moving too fast, too slow. I want to wake up from this nightmare, but I know I'm already awake. The hours that follow are a blur of flashing lights, questions, and numbness. They take me to the station, but I don't know how I got there. I'm sitting in a cold, sterile room, my hands still stained with Sarah's blood. Mike is there, his face a mask of concern, but I can't focus on him. All I can see is the crash, replaying in my mind over and over. "Joe, I need you to tell me what happened," he says, but I don't have answers. How can I explain something I don't understand myself? My mouth is dry, my throat raw, but I manage to choke out the details. The argument, the chase, the crash. Every word feels like a dagger in my chest. Mike listens, nodding, but I can see the doubt in his eyes. He doesn't believe me. Maybe I don't believe myself. How could this have happened? How could everything go so wrong so fast? They let me go eventually, but not before taking my statement. I wander out of the station in a daze, the weight of everything pressing down on me. The sun is rising, casting a pale light over the empty streets. It feels wrong, like the world shouldn't keep turning after what just happened. When I get home, the house is eerily quiet. I stand in the doorway staring at the space we once shared. The bed where she used to sleep, the kitchen where we argued, the living room where our child played. It's all the same, but everything is different now. She's gone. Gone because of me. I collapse onto the couch, my body shaking with sobs. The guilt is overwhelming, suffocating. I killed her. I might as well have been the one behind the wheel. I can't breathe, can't think. I want to scream, but there's no one to hear me. No one but the empty walls and the memories that now feel like ghosts haunting me. Hours pass. I don't know how many. I just sit there, staring into nothingness. My mind a whirl of chaos. It's not until the doorbell rings that I'm jolted back to reality. I drag myself to my feet and open the door, half expecting it to be Sarah, to tell me this is all some terrible mistake. But it's not. It's her sister. Julie stands there, her face a mixture of grief and anger. I can see the accusation in her eyes before she even says a word. "This is your fault," she spits out, her voice shaking. "You killed her." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I don't have the strength to argue, to defend myself. Maybe she's right. Maybe I did. "You chased her," she continues, stepping closer, her finger jabbing into my chest. "You drove her to this. You couldn't just let her go, could you?" I shake my head, trying to find the words, but nothing comes out. Julie's eyes narrow, her expression hardening. "I'm going to make sure you pay for this," she hisses, turning on her heel and storming off, leaving me standing in the doorway, shell-shocked. I watch her go, my mind reeling. She's going to make me pay? What does that even mean? The next few days are a blur. The funeral comes and goes, a small, somber affair that feels more like a formality than a farewell. I stand at the edge of the grave, staring down at the coffin, unable to process that she's really gone. The priest's words wash over me, meaningless in the face of my guilt. Julie is there, glaring at me the entire time. She doesn't say anything, but her presence is a constant reminder of what I've lost and what I stand to lose. I avoid her, keeping to the edges of the crowd, but I can feel her eyes on me, burning with hatred. It's not long after the funeral that I get the call. The police want to question me again, this time about the crash. My stomach drops as I listen to the detective's voice on the other end of the line, cold and professional. They want to know why I was chasing them, why I didn't stop. They want to know if I was responsible. I go back to the station, my heart pounding in my chest. This time, it's not Mike who meets me, but a stranger, a detective I've never seen before. He's all business, no sympathy in his eyes as he grills me, probing for inconsistencies, for a confession I don't have. "I wasn't trying to hurt her," I say, my voice trembling. "I just wanted her to come home." The detective doesn't blink, doesn't budge. "But she didn't come home, did she?" "She ended up dead, and you were the last person to see her alive." The words hang in the air, heavy and damning. I want to scream, to tell them they've got it all wrong, but I can see the way this is going. Julie has already planted the seeds of doubt, and they're starting to grow. When they finally let me go, I'm a wreck. I stumble out of the station, my mind spinning. How did it come to this? How did I go from a loving husband to a murder suspect in the blink of an eye? The media catches wind of the story, and soon my name is all over the news. They paint me as the jealous husband, driven mad by his wife's betrayal, chasing her to her death. The headlines scream of scandal, of a love triangle gone wrong. I can't escape it. Everywhere I go, people are whispering, pointing, judging. I try to stay strong for our child's sake, but it's hard. I can't sleep, can't eat. The house feels empty, haunted by memories of a life that's been ripped away from me. I can't even look at our child without feeling like a failure, a monster. The final blow comes when I'm served with papers. Julie is suing me for wrongful death. She's going to drag me to court to make sure I pay for what happened. I stare at the documents in disbelief, my hands shaking. This is really happening. She's going to try to ruin me, to take away everything I have left, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. I spend hours going through every detail of that night, trying to find something, anything that might help me. But all I find are more questions, more doubts. Why was Sarah with that man? How long had she been cheating on me? Why didn't I see it sooner? The more I dig, the more I realize how little I knew about my wife. There were signs, things I ignored, convinced myself were nothing. But now they all add up, painting a picture I can't ignore. Sarah wasn't just unhappy, she was living a double life, hiding secrets from me, from everyone. I start to question everything, every conversation, every moment we shared. Was any of it real? Or was I just another pawn in whatever game she was playing? The betrayal cuts deep, but so does the guilt. If I hadn't chased her, if I had just let her go, maybe she'd still be alive. But it's too late for what ifs. Julie is coming for me, and I know she won't stop until she destroys me. I have to be ready, have to find a way to fight back. I can't let her win, can't let her take everything from me. But as I delve deeper into Sarah's past, I uncover a series of dark secrets, things that don't add up, things that make me question everything I thought I knew. The more I learn, the more dangerous it becomes. It's not just about clearing my name anymore. It's about survival. And Julie? She's not just grieving. She has a vendetta, and she's willing to go to extreme lengths to see me pay. But she doesn't know what I've found, doesn't know that I'm one step ahead. Because if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that the truth is more twisted than any lie. And I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to protect myself and my child, even if it means uncovering the darkest secret of all. I hire the best lawyer I can find, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Karen. She's got a reputation for winning impossible cases, and I need someone who won't back down. From the moment she takes the case, Karen digs into every detail, every scrap of information about Sarah and her life. I'm terrified of what she might find, but I know there's no turning back now. "What do you know about your wife's past?" Karen asked during our first meeting, her eyes boring into mine. I hesitate, but I know I have to be honest. "Not much, apparently. We were married for 10 years, but it feels like I didn't know her at all." Karen nods, her pen scratching across the notepad in front of her. "We'll find out who she was, Joe, but you need to be prepared. This won't be easy." She's right. The more we dig, the darker it gets. Sarah wasn't just cheating on me. She was involved with dangerous people. Karen uncovers records of secret bank accounts, late-night meetings, and phone calls to numbers that lead nowhere. Every new discovery feels like another knife in my gut. How could I have been so blind? But it's not just the past that's haunting me. Julie, my sister-in-law, is working overtime to destroy me. She's in the media painting me as a violent, jealous husband who couldn't handle his wife's independence. Her words are poison, spreading doubt among my friends, my coworkers. Even my family starts to question me. The weight of it all is crushing. "Joe, you need to keep your head down," Karen warns me as we prepare for the preliminary hearing. "They're going to try to provoke you, make you lose control. Don't give them the satisfaction." But it's easier said than done. Every time I turn on the TV, there's Julie, spinning her web of lies. Every time I step outside, I feel the eyes on me, the whispers. The tension is unbearable. I start receiving anonymous threats, letters slipped under my door, phone calls in the middle of the night. They're vague but menacing, enough to keep me on edge. Someone wants to scare you, Karen says when I show her the latest note. But we won't let them. We need to focus on the trial. The trial, it looms over everything like a dark cloud. I can't sleep, can't eat. My mind races with every possible scenario, every way this could go wrong. I know Julie is out for blood, and she's not going to stop until I'm ruined. As the court date approaches, Karen and I go over our strategy again and again. We comb through every piece of evidence, every witness statement. But it feels like we're fighting a losing battle. Julie has connections, influence. She's managed to turn the tide of public opinion against me, and it seems like the jury is already leaning in her favor. I try to keep it together for my child's sake, but it's hard. They're confused, scared, and I don't have the answers they need. How do you explain to a child that their mother was living a double life? That their father is now being blamed for her death? The guilt eats away at me, even though I know I didn't cause the crash. But knowing it doesn't change the fact that I was there, that I chased her, that I couldn't save her. The day of the trial arrives and I feel like I'm walking into an execution chamber. The courtroom is packed, the atmosphere tense. Julie sits at the front, her eyes fixed on me with a cold, calculating stare. I force myself to look away, focusing on Karen as she outlines our defense. The prosecution wastes no time painting me as the villain. They bring up every argument Sarah and I ever had, twisting them into evidence of a volatile, abusive relationship. They dig into my past, looking for anything that could paint me in a bad light. I can feel the jury's eyes on me, judging me, and it takes everything I have not to break down. Karen fights back with everything she's got, tearing into their witnesses, exposing inconsistencies in their testimonies. But it's an uphill battle. Julie's lies have taken root, and it's clear that some of the jurors have already made up their minds. The tension in the courtroom is suffocating. Every word, every glance charged with significance. Then the bombshell drops. The prosecution presents new evidence. Security footage from the night of the crash. It shows me chasing Sarah's car, driving recklessly, desperate. I can see the jury's reaction, the way their eyes narrow, the way they exchange looks. They don't know the full story, but this footage makes me look guilty as hell. Karen jumps to her feet, objecting, arguing that the footage is taken out of context, that it doesn't show what really happened. But the damage is done. I can see it in the way the jury is looking at me now, like they've already decided my fate. As the trial drags on, I start to lose hope. Karen is relentless, but it feels like we're drowning in a sea of lies and half-truths. The weight of it all is crushing me. I can't sleep, can't eat, can barely function. Every time I close my eyes, I see Sarah's face, lifeless, accusing, and now it's like the whole world sees me as the man who killed her. Then, in the middle of it all, Karen drops a bombshell of her own. She's found something buried deep in Sarah's past. It's a dark secret, one that Julie has been desperate to keep hidden. Karen is careful, almost hesitant as she tells me, "Joe, what I'm about to tell you could change everything," she says, her voice low. "But you need to be ready for it. This isn't just about you anymore. It's about Sarah and what she was involved in." I'm on edge, my heart racing. "What do you mean?" Karen takes a deep breath. "Sarah was working with some very dangerous people. She wasn't just cheating on you, she was caught up in something much bigger. And Julie knew about it. She's been covering it up, trying to pin everything on you to keep her own hands clean." My mind reels. "What the hell are you saying, Karen? What was Sarah involved in?" Karen hesitates, choosing her words carefully. "Sarah was part of a money laundering operation. It's why she had those secret accounts, why she was meeting with those people late at night. Julie found out, and instead of helping Sarah, she decided to use it to her advantage. She knew that if Sarah went down, it would drag the whole family down with her. So she's been doing everything she can to shift the blame onto you." The room spins and I have to sit down, my legs barely able to hold me up. This changes everything. Suddenly, the crash, the trial, all of it makes a twisted kind of sense. Sarah wasn't just running away from me that night. She was running from something far more dangerous. And Julie? Julie has been playing me, manipulating me, using Sarah's death to cover her own tracks. What do we do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Karen's eyes hardened. We use it. We expose the truth. It's risky, but it's our only shot. If we can prove that Julie had a motive to frame you, we might be able to turn this around. But you have to be ready, Joe. This is going to get ugly. I nod, though I'm terrified. I'm ready. The trial takes a sharp turn as Karen introduces the evidence, laying out Sarah's involvement in the money laundering operation, connecting the dots between her secret accounts and the people she was involved with. She doesn't stop there. She goes after Julie, presenting her as the mastermind behind the cover-up, the one with the most to gain from framing me. The courtroom is in an uproar. The prosecution scrambles to discredit the new evidence, but it's clear they weren't prepared for this. The jury is visibly shaken, the seeds of doubt taking root. Julie's calm facade cracks, and for the first time, I see fear in her eyes. But it's not over. As Karen wraps up our defense, she issues a challenge to the prosecution, daring them to prove that I had any knowledge of Sarah's activities. The burden of proof shifts, and suddenly the trial isn't just about me. It's about exposing the truth behind Sarah's death. As the trial draws to a close, I can feel the tide turning. The jury is no longer looking at me like a monster. They're questioning everything they have been told, everything Julie has tried to sell them. But it's still too close to call, and I know that one wrong move could tip the scales against me. I'm walking a tightrope, one misstep away from losing everything. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I feel a glimmer of hope. I'm not just fighting for myself anymore. I'm fighting for the truth, for Sarah's memory, for my child's future. But I also know that this isn't the end. There are still secrets to uncover, still battles to be fought. And as the jury prepares to deliberate, I brace myself for whatever comes next. I sit in the courtroom trying to stay calm, but every fiber of my being is on edge. The trial has become a spectacle. The prosecution throws accusation after accusation at me, each one more damning than the last. I'm painted as a monster, a man so consumed by jealousy that I drove my wife to her death. It's a story that's almost believable, and I can see some jurors buying into it. But Karen isn't giving up. She's relentless, countering every point with the evidence we've uncovered, poking holes in their narrative. The tension in the room is palpable. Every word, every glance feels like it could tip the scales. I can't stop thinking about my child, the life we had before this nightmare began, and the life we'll have if I lose. I don't know if I can handle it, the thought of being torn away from my child, of them growing up thinking I'm guilty of this. But I have to push those thoughts away, focus on what's happening in front of me. It's a game of chess, and Julie is playing her part perfectly. She sits in the front row, dressed in black, a grieving widow in all but name. Her eyes never leave me, and I can feel her hatred burning into my skin. I don't understand how she can be so cold, so calculated. This was her sister, her own flesh and blood, and yet she's using Sarah's death to destroy me. Karen calls her to the stand, and I see the flicker of surprise in Julie's eyes. She didn't expect this. But she recovers quickly, her expression turning steely as she walks up to testify. Karen is methodical, starting with the basics, Julie's relationship with Sarah, her thoughts on our marriage. It's all standard stuff, but I can see where Karen is going with this. She's laying the groundwork, setting the stage. Did you ever notice anything unusual about your sister's behavior in the months leading up to her death? Karen asks, her voice calm, almost too calm. Julie hesitates just for a moment. No, nothing unusual. Sarah was always private. Karen nods, jotting something down. Private? How so? She didn't talk much about her personal life, Julie says, her voice steady. She kept things to herself. Even from you, Karen presses. You were her sister. Didn't that seem strange? Julie's eyes narrow. Sarah was an adult. She didn't owe me an explanation for how she lived her life. Karen lets the silence hang in the air for a moment before she continues. What about her finances? Did Sarah ever mention anything about money troubles? Secret accounts? Julie's face hardens. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything, Karen says smoothly. I'm asking if you were aware that Sarah had several accounts under different names and if you knew what she was using them for. The courtroom is dead silent, everyone waiting for Julie's response. I can see the anger in her eyes, the way her jaw tightens. She wasn't expecting Karen to go there, but she's not backing down. I had no idea, Julie finally says, her voice clipped. Sarah didn't tell me everything. Karen leans forward, her gaze locked on Julie. Did she tell you anything about her involvement in a money laundering scheme? Julie's reaction is subtle, but I catch it. The slight widening of her eyes, the way her lips press together. She's rattled. Karen has hit a nerve and she knows it. I don't know what you're talking about, Julie says, but there's a tremor in her voice now. This has nothing to do with the case. It has everything to do with the case, Karen counters, her voice rising. Because if Sarah was involved in illegal activities and you knew about it, that changes everything. It changes the motive, the circumstances of her death. It changes the reason you're so desperate to see my client convicted. Julie's composure cracks, just for a second, but it's enough. Karen pounces on it, pressing her advantage. You've been pushing this narrative that my client was a jealous, abusive husband. But the truth is you were covering for Sarah. You were protecting your own interests, weren't you? That's not true, Julie snaps, her voice shaking. I loved my sister. I would never. But you did, Karen interrupts, her voice cold. You covered up her crimes, and when she died, you saw an opportunity to pin it all on my client. You're not here for justice, Julie. You are here for revenge. The courtroom erupts into chaos, the judge banging his gavel for order. Julie is visibly shaken, her face pale. She's on the defensive now, and it's clear to everyone in the room. The jurors are whispering to each other, their expressions a mix of confusion and doubt. I watch as Julie struggles to regain her composure, but the damage is done. Karen has planted the seed of doubt, and it's growing. I can see it in the way the jury looks at me now, not with certainty, but with questions. Questions that might just save me. The next few days are a blur of testimonies, evidence, and cross-examinations. Karen is relentless, tearing apart the prosecution's case piece by piece. She exposes the inconsistencies, the losses, and slowly but surely the narrative begins to shift. I'm no longer the villain in this story, Julie is, but it's not over yet. The prosecution has one last card to play, and they're betting everything on it. They call their final witness, a man I've never seen before. He's nervous, fidgeting as he takes the stand. The prosecutor wastes no time getting to the point. Tell the court what you saw on the night of the crash, he says, his voice dripping with confidence. The man swallows hard, glancing at me before he speaks. I saw him, he says, pointing a shaky finger in my direction. I saw him driving after her, chasing her. He was angry, shouting, swerving all over the road. I thought he was going to kill her. His words hang in the air like a death sentence. The courtroom is dead silent, all eyes on me. I feel like I'm suffocating, the walls closing in. Karen immediately objects, questioning the man's credibility, but the damage is done. His testimony is powerful, and I can see the doubt creeping back into the jurors' minds. I feel like I'm spiraling, everything slipping through my fingers. The trial has turned into a nightmare, and I'm at the center of it. I don't know if I can take it anymore. But then, in the darkest moment, Karen drops the final piece of evidence, something we've been holding back, waiting for the perfect moment. It's a recording, one of Sarah's secret phone calls, and it's damning. In it, she's talking to Julie, discussing the money laundering, the accounts, and their plan to keep it hidden. It's all there, laid out in their own words. The jury listens in stunned silence as Sarah's voice echoes through the courtroom, followed by Julie's cold, calculated responses. When the recording ends, the courtroom is in an uproar. Julie's face is ashen, her eyes wide with panic. She knows it's over. The jury knows it too. The prosecutor tries to object, but it's futile. The truth is out, and there's no going back. As the trial comes to a close, I can feel the weight lifting off my shoulders. The jury deliberates for hours, but when they return, the verdict is clear. Not guilty. The words wash over me like a wave, and I can barely believe it. I'm free. I've won. But it doesn't feel like a victory. I'm too exhausted, too broken to celebrate. The trial has taken everything out of me, and all I can think about is getting home to my child, to start rebuilding the pieces of our shattered lives. As I leave the courtroom, I catch a glimpse of Julie. She's surrounded by reporters, her face a mask of defeat. For a moment, our eyes meet, and I see something in her gaze that I didn't expect. Fear. She knows she's lost, and more than that, she knows that I'm not done yet. Because while I may have won this battle, the war is far from over. I have more questions, more secrets to uncover. And now I'm more determined than ever to find the truth, no matter where it leads. I step outside, the fresh air hitting me like a slap. The sun is shining, but it feels like a different world than the one I left behind. I take a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but the ground still feels shaky beneath my feet. I'm free, but the cost has been high. As I walk away from the courthouse, I can't help but think about Sarah, about the life we had and the life that could have been. But I can't dwell on that now. I have a child who needs me, a life that needs rebuilding, but I also have unfinished business. Julie may have been exposed, but there are still questions that need answers, still shadows lurking in the corners of my mind. And I know that until I face them, until I uncover the full truth, I won't be able to move on. So I take one last look at the courthouse, at the place where my life was nearly destroyed, and I turn my back on it. The future is uncertain, but I'm ready to face it. Because now I'm stronger, smarter, and I know that whatever comes next, I'll be ready. The jury foreman stands and the room goes silent. My heart feels like it's about to burst out of my chest. Every second drags on, stretching into eternity. I grip the edge of the table, my knuckles white, trying to hold myself together. I glance at Karen, who gives me a small, reassuring nod, but I can see the tension in her eyes too. Everything comes down to this moment. Not guilty, the foreman says, his voice cutting through the silence like a knife. The words don't register at first. It's like I'm underwater, hearing everything from a distance. But then it hits me. I'm free. The weight that's been crushing me for so long finally lifts, and I can breathe again. I close my eyes, exhaling a shaky breath. I've been holding it in for what feels like months. Karen squeezes my arm, a rare smile crossing her face. You did it, Joe. But I didn't do anything. She did. Karen fought like hell to get me here, to expose the truth, to clear my name. I nod, but I can't find the words to thank her. The courtroom erupts into a flurry of noise, reporters scrambling, people talking, shouting. Julie is escorted out, her face a mask of fury and disbelief. I watch her go, but there's no satisfaction in it, only a hollow emptiness where the rage used to be. As I step outside, the sunlight feels foreign on my skin. It's too bright, too harsh after the darkness of the courtroom. Reporters swarm me, shoving microphones in my face, shouting questions, but their words blur together. I push through them, needing to get away, to escape. My thoughts are jumbled, my emotions a tangled mess. Relief, exhaustion, anger, and sorrow all swirl inside me, too much to handle at once. I finally make it to my car, collapsing into the driver's seat. I just sit there for a while, letting the engine idle, trying to piece myself back together. But my mind keeps replaying the trial, the accusations, the revelations. Sarah's face haunts me. How could she have done this? How could she have lived that double life, hiding so much from me? The betrayal still cuts deep, but now there's something else mixed in. Pity. She got caught up in something she couldn't control, and it destroyed her. I take a deep breath, trying to focus on the road ahead. I have to pick up my child, to start putting our lives back together. But as I drive, the weight of everything that's happened hangs over me like a storm cloud. I know the community is divided. Some believe I'm innocent, but others still think I'm guilty. Their whispers follow me, a constant reminder that I'll never truly escape this. When I arrive at the school, my child is waiting, their face lighting up when they see me. It's the first genuine smile I've seen in what feels like forever, and it warms something inside me that I thought had died. I crouch down, pulling them into a tight hug, holding on for dear life. This is what matters. This is what I have to focus on now. Are we going home, Daddy? They ask, their voice muffled against my shoulder. Yeah, I say, my voice thick. We're going home. But home doesn't feel the same anymore. The house is a shell filled with memories that are now tainted by everything that's happened. I try to keep things normal for my child's sake, cooking dinner, helping with homework, tucking them in at night, but the shadows linger. Every corner of the house feels haunted by the ghost of the life we used to have. Nights are the worst. When the house is quiet and dark, my thoughts take over, replaying everything in an endless loop. The crash, the trial, Sarah's betrayal. It's like a movie I can't turn off, no matter how hard I try. Sleep doesn't come easily, and when it does, it's filled with nightmares. The nightmares are vivid, a twisted mix of past and present. I see Sarah's face, hear her voice, but it's distorted, accusing. I see Julie, her eyes burning with hatred, and I'm back in the courtroom reliving the worst moments over and over. I wake up in a cold sweat, my heart racing, but the terror lingers long after the dream fades. I try to push forward, to focus on my child, on rebuilding our lives, but the community is a minefield. Some neighbors are supportive, offering kind words and casseroles, but others avoid me, their gazes full of judgment. I can feel the tension at the grocery store, at school functions. Everywhere I go, there's a sense that I don't belong anymore, that I'm marked, tainted by the scandal. I start avoiding places where I might run into people. I don't go to the local diner where I used to have coffee every morning. I skip school events, sending a babysitter instead. It's easier to stay in the shadows, to avoid the stares and whispers, but I know that's no way to live. Karen checks in on me every now and then, offering support, but there's only so much she can do. She's done her job, and now it's up to me to figure out the rest. But I feel lost, like I'm drifting without a map, trying to find my way back to a life that no longer exists. One day, as I'm cleaning out the garage, I stumble upon an old box of Sarah's things. It's filled with letters, photos, mementos from our life together. I almost put it back on the shelf, not wanting to open that wound again, but something stops me. I sit down on the cold concrete floor, opening the box and sifting through the memories. The photos are the hardest. They show a time when we were happy, or at least when I thought we were. I see Sarah's smile, the way she looked at me, and it's like a punch to the gut. How much of it was real? How much was a lie? As I dig deeper, I find something I wasn't expecting. Letters from Sarah, written to me but never sent. They're raw, full of pain and regret, and they paint a picture of a woman who was torn apart by her secrets. She loved me, she says, but she was trapped, caught up in something bigger than herself. She was scared, ashamed, and she didn't know how to get out. I read the letters over and over, trying to make sense of them, but all I feel is sadness. Sarah was lost, and I never even saw it. I was too focused on my own pain, my own anger, to see that she was drowning. And now it's too late. The letters give me some closure, but they also leave me with more questions. What could I have done differently? Could I have saved her? But those questions don't have answers, and dwelling on them won't change anything. I put the letters back in the box and close the lid. It's time to move forward, to start rebuilding. But as I stand up, I realize something important. I'm not just rebuilding for me. I'm rebuilding for my child, for the life we still have ahead of us. I start taking steps, small at first. I go back to the diner, even though it feels strange to be there without Sarah. I start attending school events again, even though the stares are still there. It's not easy, but it's necessary. I can't live in the shadows forever. And slowly things start to change. The whispers fade, the stares lessen. People begin to accept that I'm still here. still part of the community. It's not the same as before, but it's a start. But there's still a part of me that's restless, that knows this chapter of my life isn't fully closed. Julie is out there somewhere, and I can't shake the feeling that we're not done yet. She was willing to destroy me to protect herself, and I need to make sure she doesn't get the chance to do it again. So I start digging, quietly, carefully. I look into her past, her connections, trying to find something, anything that could explain why she was so desperate to frame me. And what I find shocks me. Julie was more involved in Sarah's secret life than I realized. She wasn't just covering for her sister, she was a part of it. The money laundering, the shady deals, they weren't just Sarah's doing. Julie was right there beside her, pulling the strings, making sure everything ran smoothly. And now that Sarah's gone, Julie is in deeper than ever. She's scrambling, trying to cover her tracks, to keep everything from falling apart. And I'm going to make sure she doesn't succeed. The trial may be over, but the fight isn't. I have the evidence, the truth, and I'm not afraid to use it. Julie tried to ruin me, but she underestimated me. I'm not the same man I was before all this. I'm stronger, smarter, and I know how to play the game now. As I stand in the doorway of my child's room watching them sleep peacefully, I make a promise to myself. I'll protect what's left of my family, no matter what it takes. I'll make sure Julie pays for what she's done, for what she tried to do. The road ahead won't be easy, but I'm ready for it. I've been through hell and back, and I'm still standing. And now I'm taking control of my life again. One step at a time, I spend days stewing over the information I've uncovered about Julie. The rage I feel isn't just about what she did to me, it's about Sarah too. Julie manipulated her, pushed her into that dark world, and when everything fell apart, she tried to pin it on me. I need to confront her, but I know I can't just rush in. Julie is dangerous, more dangerous than I ever realized. I have to be smart, calculated. I wait until the evening when I know she'll be alone. I've tracked her movements over the past few days, and I've noticed a pattern. She spends her nights at a house on the edge of town, one I didn't recognize at first. It's a safe house, a place where she conducts her illicit business away from prying eyes. That's where I'll find her. The drive out there is tense. My hands grip the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turn white. My mind races, running through 1,000 scenarios of how this will go down. I need to stay calm, focused, but the anger simmering inside me makes it hard to think straight. I keep replaying everything she did, every lie she told, every time she twisted the knife deeper. It fuels me, gives me the resolve I need. The house is isolated, surrounded by dense woods. It's perfect for the kind of business Julie's been running. Hidden, out of sight. I park a little way down the road, not wanting to draw attention. As I approach, I see that the lights are on inside. She's there, just like I thought. I stand outside for a moment, collecting myself. My heart pounds in my chest, but I push the fear down, focusing on the task at hand. I don't knock. I just open the door and step inside, the cool air of the house washing over me. Julie is sitting at a table in the living room, paper spread out in front of her. She looks up when I enter, and for a moment there's nothing but surprise in her eyes, but it quickly turns to something darker. Anger, mixed with fear. "What the hell are you doing here, Joe?" she snaps, standing up. There's a tremor in her voice that she tries to hide, but I catch it. I close the door behind me, taking slow, deliberate steps toward her. "We need to talk, Julie." Her eyes narrow and she takes a step back, putting the table between us. "There's nothing to talk about. You should leave before you regret it." "I'm not going anywhere," I say, my voice low, steady. "Not until you tell me the truth. All of it." Julie's jaw tightens and I can see the wheels turning in her mind. She's trying to figure out how to get out of this, how to manipulate the situation to her advantage. But I'm done playing her games. "You think you're so smart," she hisses. "You think you've got it all figured out, but you don't know a damn thing." "Then tell me," I challenge, leaning forward. "Tell me what I don't know." For a moment, it seems like she's going to hold out, but then something shifts. Maybe it's the realization that she's cornered, that I'm not going to back down. Or maybe she just wants to gloat, to show me how deep her betrayal goes. Fine, she spits, her eyes flashing with anger. You want the truth? Sarah was weak, always has been. She got herself into trouble and she couldn't handle it. I did what I had to do to protect us, to protect our family, and if that meant throwing you under the bus, then so be it. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I forced myself to stay calm. Protect our family? Is that what you call it? You used her, Julie. You used her until there was nothing left. Julie laughs, a cold, bitter sound. Sarah made her choices. She wasn't some innocent victim. She knew exactly what she was doing. Maybe she did, I concede, my voice quiet but firm. But that doesn't excuse what you did. You pushed her, manipulated her, and when it all went wrong, you tried to cover it up by destroying me. Julie's expression hardens, her eyes narrowing to slits. And it almost worked, didn't it? You're lucky, Joe. You're lucky that Karen is as good as she is, or you'd be rotting in a cell right now. I take a step closer, closing the distance between us. But I'm not, Julie. I'm standing right here, and I'm not going to let you get away with this. For a moment, fear flickers in her eyes again, but she quickly smothers it. What are you going to do, Joe? You got nothing on me. You think you can take me down? You don't have the guts. I hold her gaze, my anger boiling just beneath the surface. You're right, Julie. I don't have the guts to do what you did, but I don't need to. I've already turned everything I've found over to the police. It's only a matter of time before they come for you. Her face goes pale and I see the panic start to set in. You're bluffing. Am I? I pull out my phone, showing her the screen. You recognize this number? It's the detective who worked on my case. He's very interested in hearing what I have to say about your involvement in Sarah's crimes. And he's already looking into your financials, your connections. It's all going to come crashing down, and Julie. For the first time, I see real fear in her eyes. She's realizing that she's lost, that there's no way out, but then something shifts in her expression. A flash of desperation. You don't understand, she says, her voice trembling. They're not just going to take me down. They'll come after you too. They'll dig up everything, every little detail. You think you're safe, but you're not. They'll find something and they'll use it against you. I take a deep breath, steadying myself, maybe, but I'm willing to take that risk. Because I'm not going to let you get away with this. Julie's eyes dart around the room like she's looking for an escape, but there's nowhere to go. She's trapped, and she knows it. Finally, she slumps back into the chair, defeated. Why, Julie? I ask, my voice quiet, almost pleading. Why did you do all of this? She looks up at me, and for the first time, I see something other than anger or hatred in her eyes, pain. Because I was jealous, Joe. I was always jealous. Of Sarah, of you, of everything you had. She was always the favorite, the one everyone loved. And I was just me. I wanted what she had, and when she got in over her head, I saw my chance. Her confession leaves me numb. I knew Julie was ruthless, but I never expected this depth of envy and spite. It's like staring into a black hole, and it makes me wonder if I ever truly knew her, or Sarah for that matter. I'm sorry, Joe, she whispers, tears glistening in her eyes. I'm sorry for everything. I don't know if she's sincere, and at this point, I don't care. It's too late for that, Julie. She nods, accepting her fate. What happens now? I sigh, the weight of the past months settling on my shoulders. Now you deal with the consequences of your actions, and I start trying to rebuild what's left of my life. I turn to leave, but Julie's voice stops me. Joe, do you think she ever really loved you? The question hangs in the air, and I feel a pang of sadness deep in my chest. I don't know, I admit, but I'd like to think she did, in her own way. With that, I walk out of the house, leaving Julie behind. The night air is cool against my skin as I make my way back to the car. I feel lighter, like a burden has been lifted off my shoulders, but there's still a heaviness in my heart. This confrontation might have brought some closure, but it hasn't erased the pain of what's happened. The drive home is quiet. I keep the radio off, letting the silence fill the car. My mind is a whirlwind of thoughts, but there's one thing I know for sure. I'm done looking back. Julie's confession gave me the truth I needed, and now it's time to focus on the future. When I get home, I find my child asleep in their bed, the soft rise and fall of their breathing, soothing my frayed nerves. I stand there for a long moment, just watching them, reminding myself of what's truly important. They're my priority now, and I'm going to do everything I can to give them a life free from the shadows of the past. The next few weeks are a blur of police interviews, legal proceedings, and media attention. Julie's arrest makes headlines, and the full extent of her involvement in Sarah's crimes comes to light. It's messy, but it's a necessary step toward justice. I cooperate fully with the authorities, knowing that I have nothing to hide. But it's still a draining process, and by the end of it, I feel like I've aged years. But through it all, I keep my focus on my child and on the future. I start making plans, looking into moving to a new town, a fresh start where we can leave the past behind. It's not an easy decision. There are ties here, memories, but I know it's the right one. One evening, as I sit on the porch watching the sunset, I feel a sense of peace that I haven't felt in a long time. The scars of what's happened will always be there, but they're starting to heal. And with them, I'm starting to heal too. Forgiveness isn't easy, and I don't know if I'll ever truly forgive Julie, or Sarah for that matter. But I'm learning to forgive myself, to let go of the guilt and the anger that have been weighing me down. And that's a start. As I sit there, I make a silent vow to myself and to my child. We're going to be okay. We're going to move forward together and build a life that's full of love and hope. The darkness may always be a part of me, but it doesn't define me. I'm stronger than that, and so is my child. And for the first time in a long while, I truly believe that we have a future worth looking forward to. The house is quiet now, the kind of quiet that feels heavy, almost suffocating. I sit on the edge of the bed, staring at the framed photo on the nightstand. It's a picture of Sarah and me taken years ago when life was simpler, when I still believed in happy endings. Her smile is bright, her eyes full of life, and I can't reconcile that image with the woman who hid so much from me, the woman who was tangled in lies, deceit, and darkness. I've spent so many nights here, lying awake, questioning everything. How did I miss the signs? How did I let it all spiral so far out of control? But now, after everything, I'm finally starting to let go of those questions. They don't have answers that will satisfy me. And they don't change what happened. The trial, Julie's betrayal, the secrets, it's all behind me now, but the scars remain. Not the kind that you see in the mirror, but the kind that live deep inside, the ones that shape who you become. I used to think I could outrun them, that if I just moved forward fast enough, I could leave it all behind. But that's not how it works. The past doesn't just disappear. It lingers like a shadow, always there, even when you're not looking. I get up and walk to the window, looking out at the street below. It's late, the neighborhood is quiet, everyone else lost in their own lives, their own problems. I wonder if they have heard about Julie's arrest, if they know what really happened. The media covered it, of course, but the story has started to fade. People move on quickly these days, always looking for the next scandal, the next drama. But for me, this isn't just a story, it's my life. The house feels empty without Sarah, but it's not the kind of emptiness that can be filled. It's the kind that you learn to live with, that becomes a part of you. I've accepted that now. This is my reality, and I have to make the best of it. I turn away from the window and head down the hall to my child's room. I push the door open quietly, peeking inside. They're asleep, their small form curled up under the covers. I step inside, my heart swelling with a mix of love and guilt. They've been through so much, more than any child should ever have to endure. But they're strong, stronger than I ever imagined. I sit down on the edge of the bed, brushing a strand of hair from their forehead. They stir slightly but don't wake. I wonder what they're dreaming about. I hope it's something peaceful, something that takes them far away from the chaos of the past few months. "Daddy's here," I whisper, my voice barely audible. It's a promise, one I intend to keep. I'll always be here, no matter what. I leave the room quietly, closing the door behind me. In the living room, I pour myself a drink and sink into the couch. The whiskey burns as it goes down, but it's a good burn, the kind that reminds you you're still alive, still fighting. The future is uncertain, but it doesn't scare me like it used to. I've been through hell and back, and I'm still standing. I know there will be challenges ahead, but I also know that I'm ready for them. I'm not the same man I was before all this began. I'm stronger, harder, but also more aware of what really matters. I've been thinking a lot about moving. A fresh start, somewhere far away from the memories that haunt this place. Somewhere my child and I can build a new life, free from the shadows of the past. It won't be easy, but I'm ready for the challenge. I've already started looking at a few places. A small town by the coast, a cabin in the mountains. Somewhere peaceful, where we can heal, where we can be a family again. But even as I make these plans, I know the past will never fully let go. It's a part of me now, woven into the fabric of who I am. There will always be reminders, small things that trigger memories, that bring it all rushing back. But I'm learning to live with that, to accept it as part of my story. I finish my drink and set the glass down on the table. The room is dark, the only light coming from the street lamp outside. It casts long shadows across the floor, but they don't scare me. I've faced worse, and I've come out the other side. As I sit there, I think about what comes next. Not just the move, but everything. Raising my child, rebuilding our lives, finding a way to be happy again. It won't happen overnight, but that's okay. I've learned to be patient, to take things one day at a time. I've also learned the value of forgiveness, not just forgiving others, but forgiving myself. I made mistakes, I missed signs, but I'm done beating myself up over it. I did the best I could with what I knew at the time, and that's all anyone can ask. There's still a lot of healing to do, but I'm ready for it. I'm ready to move forward, to start living again, not just surviving. It's a strange feeling, this mix of hope and fear, but it's a good kind of strange. It means I'm alive, that I still have a future to look forward to. I stand up, stretching, feeling the tension in my muscles start to ease. I take one last look around the room, at the life I've built here, the life that's about to change. It's bittersweet, but it's also exciting. The unknown used to terrify me, but now it feels like an opportunity, a chance to start over, to do things right this time. As I head upstairs to bed, I feel a sense of peace that's been missing for so long. I know there will be hard days ahead, but I also know I can handle them. I've been through the worst, and I've come out stronger. Whatever comes next, I'll be ready. And as I lay down, closing my eyes, I make a promise to myself. No more running from the mess, no more hiding from the truth. I'll face it head on, but I won't let it define me. I'm ready to embrace the future, whatever it holds. And for the first time in a long while, I drift off to sleep with a sense of hope, because I know that no matter what, we're going to be okay.